Welcome to Boring History for Sleep. Tonight, let your thoughts drift back in time to a world of quiet cloisters and candlelit halls, a place where the days move gently in a rhythm of soft footsteps and whispered prayers. Imagine yourself now, stepping through a low-arched doorway, cool stone beneath your feet. You have entered a medieval Here, time lingers, the air is hushed, and even the smallest sound, the scratch of a quill, the rustle of parchment, feels like a secret shared only with the walls. Within these walls, a lone scribe bends over his desk, a pool of warm light from a flickering lantern. In his hand, a slender quill, dipped in dark gall ink. He writes, not for fame, but for the simple, patient promise that words, carefully kept, can outlive a single lifetime. As you listen, you may feel your eyes grow heavy. That is good. Rest now, and drift softly into the quiet hours of the scribe's ink and dreams. Scene 1. Daily life immersion. Imagine yourself waking before dawn, in a small, chill cell of stone. The walls are rough but clean. A single wooden bed, its blanket of coarse wool, a simple candle stub beside a clay bowl of water. Brother Aldwin the scribe breathes the cold morning air as he pulls his robe close, brown and scratchy against his skin. Outside, the first gray light seeps through narrow windows. A bell tolls softly, echoing across the courtyard. He smooths his robe, and steps into the corridor. His sandals whisper on the worn flagstones, joining the quiet shuffle of other brothers gathering in the chapel. The chapel is dim, lit by the faint glow of dawn. Candles flicker along the stone walls, their flames bowing and dancing in the drafts. They stand together, heads bowed, voices murmuring psalms in a chant so soft it seems almost part of the silence itself. When the prayers fade, Brother Aldwin follows the rhythm of their days. A small breakfast in a refectory, bread, a cup of thin broth, perhaps a handful of dried fruit if the season has been kind. The bread is rough, baked in the monastery's own oven, carrying the faint warmth of the hearth that birthed it. The broth steams in the chill air, scented faintly with leek and parsley from the garden. No voices rise above a whisper. After the meal, the monks scatter, some to the gardens, to tend the herbs and beans and cabbages that feed their simple table, some to the orchard, to prune the old apple trees whose fruit will become cider or sweet paste for the winter. Brother Aldwin turns to the scriptorium, his daily realm of ink and parchment. The scriptorium lies beyond a low wooden door, just off the main cloister. It is a long, narrow room with tall, arched windows that catch the soft daylight when the sun is kind. Today, thin rays slip through, pooling on the wooden desks. You can hear the faintest creak of the floorboards under leather sandals. You can smell warm beeswax from the candles, sharp iron from the ink, the faint musk of vellum, calfskin, scraped smooth and pale. Brother Aldwin finds his desk a solid plank of oak, smoothed by years of elbows and ink spills. Beside his inkwell sits a small knife for sharpening his quill, and a pumice stone for smoothing rough patches of parchment. He dips his quill into the dark ink, made from oak galls, iron salts, and a touch of wine to help it flow. He pauses, breathes, and lets the quill meet the page. Each letter appears slowly, curling and looping with care. The rhythm of their days is in this gentle scratching, a sound that rises and falls like a quiet lullaby. Outside the scriptorium window, the garden hums softly. Bees drift lazily among lavender stalks. A breeze stirs the rosemary, carrying its sharp green scent into the room. Birdsong weaves through the air, not loud but constant enough to feel like a companion. Sometimes, Brother Aldwin pauses, setting down his quill to rest his cramped hand. He lifts his gaze to the garden, letting his eyes drift out of focus. Perhaps he thinks of the psalms he copies, or the secrets hidden in their curling letters. Perhaps he thinks of nothing at all, only the rhythm of his own breath, the softness of the day unfolding at its own unhurried pace. At midday, a small bell rings again. It is time for the simple noon meal. More bread, perhaps a bowl of pottage thickened with barley. A hush sits over the refectory like a warm blanket. The brothers eat side by side, the scrape of spoons and soft clink of wooden cups the only sounds. Then they return to their work, some to the gardens, some to the kitchens. Brother Aldwin to his desk. He trims a new quill, feeling the slight give of the feather's shaft beneath his knife. He tests it against the page, adjusting the angle until the ink flows just right. Again, he writes. Small, careful letters, each one like a footstep leading into the future. Outside, the day drifts slowly toward dusk. The light shifts, warming to amber, then deepening into soft gray once more. As evening comes, the scriptorium grows dim. Lanterns are lit, their flames trembling in the draught that finds its way through the stone walls. Brother Aldwin's eyes grow heavy, but he finishes the final line of his day's work. He sprinkles fine sand over the wet ink, letting it dry before gently blowing it away. He closes the manuscript, binding it with a strip of soft leather. He cleans his quill, snuffs out the lantern, and steps once more into the quiet corridor. A final prayer in the chapel, voices weaving softly together in the candlelit hush. Then, to his cell again, to the simple bed, the coarse blanket, the cool stone that holds the night's secrets. Outside an owl calls once into the darkness. Inside, the rhythm of their days falls silent, and Brother Aldwin drifts into his dreams. As you too may drift now, carried by the gentle hush of ink, parchment, and the soft promise of another dawn. Imagine now the same stone walls, but many seasons earlier. See a boy, no more than 12 summers old, standing at the monastery gate. His cloak is patched, his boots worn thin by the muddy roads he has walked with his father. His hands are tucked deep in his sleeves, trembling with the chill morning air. He carries no satchel, only a small wooden cross, carved by his mother before she slipped away into the hush of winter. A monk greets them at the gate, a kindly face, hood drawn low against the wind. They speak few words. There is no need for many. The boy's father presses his hand to the boy's head, murmurs a blessing, and turns back down the long road. Young Aldwin steps across the threshold alone, into the rhythm of their days. His first weeks are a flurry of new sounds. The low murmur of Latin prayers, the tolling of the bell at dawn and dusk, the soft echo of chanting voices that blend together like threads in a tapestry. He learns to rise before the sun, to kneel on cold stone, to listen more than he speaks. In the garden he helps older brothers pull weeds from the herb beds, sage, rosemary, thyme, the scents clinging to his fingers. He learns to bake coarse loaves in the warm kitchen, stirring barley pottage in heavy iron pots. At night he curls beneath a thin blanket, listening to the sigh of the wind in the eaves above. As the seasons pass, Aldwin grows. He learns to read, slowly at first, stumbling through the curling letters, the ink-smudged pages. His fingers trace the words until they flow like a stream through his mind. Older monks notice his careful eye, his quiet patience, the way he lingers near the scriptorium door, watching the scribes at work. One winter morning, his mentor, Brother Osric, places a quill in his hand. The feather is soft and pale against his skin. He dips it into ink for the first time and blots the parchment. He frowns, tries again. The letters come crooked at first, but steady, each one a soft promise that knowledge will endure. Years slip by like pages turning. Brother Aldwin becomes the scribe whose careful hand preserves psalms, prayers, and letters sent far beyond the monastery walls. He copies lines in Latin, some in the old vernacular tongue, so that lords and ladies might read them by their own firesides. He learns to mix ink from oak galls gathered beneath bare winter trees. He learns to stretch vellum, scraping it smooth with pumice, so that it will hold words for centuries. He learns to illuminate, to brush gold leaf so fine it clings to his breath if he sighs too close. Sometimes a noble messenger arrives at the gate, cloak heavy with rain, horse steaming in the courtyard. A letter is pressed into Aldwin's care, a commission for a book of vows perhaps, or a family tree for some distant baron's lineage. He accepts the task, returns to his small wooden desk. By lantern light, he shapes each word with slow devotion. Each stroke is quiet proof that even in a restless world, some things move only as swiftly as the steady scratch of a quill. In the quiet hours, Brother Aldwin keeps his own small notebook, scraps of parchment bound with twine. Here he copies lines of poetry he has heard, small prayers whispered in the chapel's shadows. Once, he writes a letter for himself, though he has no one left to send it to, a letter to his mother's memory, thanking her for the small wooden cross he still keeps beneath his pillow. He writes it in careful hand, folds it and slips it deep inside the binding of an old psalter where only he knows it rests. Years deepen the lines around his eyes. His hands bear the faint brown stain of ink that never fully fades, yet his eyes remain clear, following each word as though it were a soft footstep on a familiar path. He trains younger brothers, patient novices who come to stand beside him, wide-eyed and quiet. He shows them how to trim a quill, how to warm a stiff ink pot near the lantern flame, how to mend a tear in the fragile vellum. He reminds them to breathe, to rest their eyes on the garden when the letters blur. One winter evening, when snow piles high against the cloister walls, Brother Aldwin pauses in his work. He looks through the frosted glass, watching flakes drift like drifting ash in the lantern light. He lifts his quill, dips it once more, and writes a final line before the bell calls him to evening prayers. He smiles, faintly, at the thought that long after he slips into the hush of his dreams, his careful letters will linger. They will rest in libraries, in dusty chests, on altars flickering with candlelight, a quiet testament that one man's patient hours can ripple softly through time. So ends the gentle telling of Brother Aldwin's days, from boy to brother, from novice to keeper of words. In the hush of the scriptorium, the rhythm of their days continues, a soft promise carried on parchment and ink, waiting to drift, like you, into dreams. Settle yourself deeper now, as we remain within the monastery's stone embrace. The day has faded into a blue dusk. Lanterns flicker in the scriptorium, casting soft halos of light on the worn wooden desks. Here Brother Aldwin sits, his head bent low, a fresh piece of parchment before him. But tonight, his ink is not the dark ochre that stains his fingers brown. Tonight he reaches for something lighter, a secret ink, nearly invisible in the lantern's glow. Imagine yourself leaning closer, watching him squeeze a plump lemon over a small clay cup. He mixes the pale juice with a drop of clear water. His quill dips into this faint liquid. It drips almost like water itself. When he writes, the parchment remains nearly blank, save for a slight sheen that catches the flicker of candlelight at just the right angle. Why write words the eye cannot see? Here, in this quiet place, secrets whisper in the margins. Sometimes a monk's thoughts were meant only for heaven. Small prayers hidden from the eyes of lords and bishops alike, a line of scripture, a humble plea for forgiveness, a single name remembered long after the grave had closed its gate. Brother Aldwin holds the page to the lantern's warmth. Slowly, ghostly letters bloom, darkening. Where the lemon juice meets the gentle heat, a hidden psalm appears, line by careful line, words that will fade again when the parchment cools, slipping back into silence. In this way, secrets pass from one careful hand to another. Sometimes the hidden ink held messages meant for distant abbeys, safe from prying eyes should a letter fall into untrustworthy hands. Other times, it held only a monk's private wonderings, lines of poetry, or doubts too fragile to voice aloud. In the margins of great men, Akina might find tiny symbols, half-scratched sigils, faded signs that mark a passage for those who know how to look. An extra curl of a letter, a tiny shape pressed into the vellum with a blunt knife. A code within a code, resting in plain sight while remaining unseen. Not every secret was so gentle. In times of unrest, whispers told of messages carried across, kingdoms in plain scrolls, the invisible ink waiting to be revealed by a warm flame in the hands of trusted eyes, warnings of approaching armies, pledges of loyalty, quietly sworn, plots that drifted like shadows through the corridors of power. But here, within these monastery walls, the secrets remain soft. Brother Aldwin's hidden words are humble, a prayer that his worn hands might remain steady another year, a blessing for the novice who dozes at his side, head resting on a stack of scrap parchment. Sometimes he writes the name of his mother again, hidden among the flourishes of Latin, a small ritual, folded into the slow breath of his days. The art of hidden ink is simple, but it carries a hush, a promise that some truths are meant to be glimpsed only by those who know where to look. Lemon juice, vinegar, milk, all could become the vessel for secret lines. The warmth of a candle flame, the edge of an iron brazier, a simple hearth. These bring the hidden words to life. Standing in the scriptorium at midnight, Brother Aldwin has left for his cell. The room is still, but on his desk lies a parchment that looks blank in the lantern's dim glow. If you were to hold it to the flame, you might see his secret prayers bloom for an instant. Pale words made visible by fire's breath. Then they would fade again into silence, folded gently back into the hush of parchment and time. Outside the scriptorium, the monastery breathes in quiet sleep. The garden is heavy with night mist. The cold stone walls hold centuries of secrets. Prayers whispered, ink hidden, letters sealed with warm wax. All of it safe in the slow pulse of their days. So let your mind rest now, among invisible ink and hidden dreams. Secrets kept safe by the flicker of a lantern and the hush of a steady quill. Trust that some things, soft things, secret things, drift just beneath the surface, waiting to be revealed only when warmth and trust are near. And now, drift with me beyond the stone walls, past the hush of the scriptorium and the scent of old ink. Follow the winding road that curls like a ribbon through meadows and villages, until it reaches the great manors and echoing castles where the noble lords and ladies dwell, where Brother Aldwin's humble letters sometimes travel, folded neat in wax-sealed scrolls, carried by riders whose cloaks billow like dark wings at dawn. Imagine yourself stepping from the cold monastery yard into a grand hall, warmed by countless hearths and heavy tapestries that hush the winter wind. The air here is scented not with parchment and oil lamps, but with rosemary-studded venison, fresh baked breads, wine spiced with cloves. A flicker of gold leaf glitters on the embroidery that edges noble sleeves, tiny stitches catching the firelight, bright where the scribe's ink is soft and shadowed. A noble woman sits by the hearth, her gown, a pool of rich velvet at her feet. In her slender hands rests a book of hours, pages once blank, now dense with careful latting, illuminated with vines and curling flowers painted in lapis and vermilion. Perhaps Brother Aldwin's hand shaped those letters. He never sees this hall, but his words live here, held in gentle hands that turn each page by candlelight. Servants pad softly across rush-strewn floors, bearing platters of sweetmeats, pitchers of honeydale. A jester murmurs half-remembered tales in the corner, his voice a bright thread weaving through the hush of silk and silver goblets. Far above, tapestries hang heavy on stone walls, scenes of hunting and feasting stitched in threads of gold that glint when the hearths blaze high. Outside these walls, in the muddy lanes beyond the manor gate, life takes on a rougher shape. Peasants bend their backs to frozen earth, coaxing what harvest they can from fields that never quite sleep. The plow creaks, sheep bell tinkles in the mist. A child clutches a crust of bread, cheeks flushed raw with the wind. They will never hold a book of vows, yet they live in the margins of its pages, their tides feeding the monks who craft the prayers, the scribes who press quills to vellum deep into the night. When winter grows long and the hall's warmth flickers low, the nobleman may summon a fresh letter from the monastery, perhaps a psalm to comfort a restless soul, perhaps a record of lineage to remind him of his place among the old bloodlines. He might touch the parchment's edge and never think of the quill that shaped it, never see Brother Aldwin hunch near the oil lamp, pressing soft words into skin scraped smooth and thin. Yet sometimes, across centuries, ink finds a way to bind the humble to the grand. A monk's secret prayer folded within the gilded pages of a noble's Bible, a hidden plea for mercy that drifts from cloister to court, a slip of lemon-inked parchment tucked among the dowry ledgers of a lady's bridal chest, unseen by all but her quiet handmaid, who warms it near a candle just to glimpse its faint message of hope. Imagine the hush of this connection, the way a single scribe-esque careful lines might slip through iron gates and stone towers riding inside, the silk-lined satchels of messengers who pause at icy crossroads to warm their hands beside a hedge fire. Back in the monastery, the life remains simpler, colder, yet full of a different wealth. The wealth of quiet hours and the hush of shared prayers. The soft rhythm of Brother Aldwin's days is a stark contrast to the clamor of banquets, the rustle of velvet sleeves, the bright laughter that echoes off gold-burnished walls. And yet, each world needs the other. Without the noble's coin, the monastery's candles would burn low, ink would run dry, parchments would go unbound. Without the monk's steady hands, the noble's halls would lack the prayers that promise salvation, the books that whisper ancient psalms, the records that bind fathers to sons in neat, unbroken lines. See, even here, in the hush before sleep, the humble scribe's ink drifts softly through gilded dreams. A single quill, dipped in gall or hidden lemon juice, binds the frostbitten field to the warm manor heart. It ties the novice's whisper to the lady's silent prayer. In this hush, imagine yourself drifting among both worlds. Feel the rough chill of the cloister stone, then the warm hush of the velvet hall. Hear the rustle of parchment, then the soft spill of wine into silver cups. Each sound, each scent, each texture, weaving a soft lullaby of ink and dreams. Closing reflection, so now, let your eyes grow heavy. Imagine Brother Aldwin at his desk, his quill resting at last in the inkpot, his lantern guttering low. Imagine the noblewoman closing her book of hours, silk slippers whispering against rushes as she slips away to her chamber. The secrets of ink, the rhythm of prayers, the hush of secrets folded between pages. All of it drifts now into the quiet dark. May your dreams be parchment soft and lantern warm. May your thoughts wander gently, like hidden ink beneath the flame, waiting to bloom when warmth finds them again. Rest now, with the hush of their days wrapped around you, and drift softly into sleep.